Obviously, Daboll's your guy. You've been close to him for a long time. What was your reaction this week?
Yeah, there's always a human element of it. Miss him, love him, appreciate the opportunity he gave me. Miss him and love him.
How different has this week been for you? How much are you guys doing things differently from your quarterback perspective?
No different. Once it happens, it's okay. Now we got to focus on beating Green Bay, putting together the best plan for the quarterbacks, and that's really been my focus the whole way. Getting Jameis ready to go. He'll do a great job. Russ has been awesome throughout this whole thing, so it's been pretty normal, other than the obvious.
You and Mike have been together 4 years. How would you describe your relationship?
Yeah, me and Mike have always had really good dialogue. Everything's been really good. Happy for him and his opportunity. He's done a great job so far. I'm just here to keep supporting him like I have for the last 4 years.
He comes from a different background, different offense.
Mm-hmm.
Does it change in that regard that maybe we see a little bit more of his influence than maybe Dave's from before?
I don't think so. It was pretty collaborative throughout the whole process from 2022 on. We get in there, we try to figure out what our guys do best and put them in the best positions, and that really doesn't change.
What did you think of Tim Kelly being named OC?
Yeah, I was happy for Tim. He's a really good coach, has a lot of good experience doing it.
We've heard a lot, Shay, that I think Daboll and Kafka both said Dart didn't sound right when you guys pulled him out. I think you were the first one to talk to him. Can you expand what was happening on that?
Yeah, like Kaf said, when we noticed something was off, we got him right to the medical professionals and got him looked at.
Right after the fumble, though, on the sideline there, did you notice anything as you were talking to him?
No, not right away. But as soon as we had some inkling into something was going on, we got the doctors right away.
So he seemed normal talking to you?
Yeah, he came off and was just talking about the fumble. So, and when we noticed what it was, we said, hey, let's go get him looked at.
What did he say about why he didn't reach out for the ball?
Never really came up. We didn't talk about that.
What do you expect from Jameis? He's been around a long time. What do you see in terms of his readiness to do this?
Yeah, he's been great. His energy, his focus, his detail, the experience. You guys saw him out here the other day. That him singing and all that happens in the meeting room. It happens all the time. So it's great. He feeds or he gives energy to the other guys. He feeds off the other guys. His leadership's been awesome. His preparation's been great. So excited to see him go out there and play.
With Jackson, how much? Obviously, he has a concussion.
Mm-hmm.
Got tested 3 other times already this year. How much do you, if at all, have to change? I mean, we've talked about the limiting the hits. How much do you have to change the way you approach that moving forward?
Yeah, you're just always trying to be. We talked about it early on with him. Like, when is it time to get down? When is it time to, fight for that extra yard and all that? And part of it is, seeing things as they're happening. Bang bang play right there. Unfortunately, he got hit, but he did on that one. Again, it's always protecting yourself in the situation is always the most important, like we've said before.
But
I feel like we asked you that about Daniel for 3 years, about Daniel not sliding, and but Daniel's a bigger guy than Jackson. Does that matter? Does that come into the account at all, that maybe Daniel's built more for it than Jackson?
I don't think so. I think for quarterbacks, it goes back to their competitive fire. Those are the guys you want. Love that about Daniel. Love that about Jackson. Russ, Jameis. They're competitive. When the game's on the line, they're gonna go ahead and do that. And like I said, there's always a balance to it. And there's situations where you fight for that extra yard, or you're trying to go make that play. And then there's other times where you slide and get down. And overall, I feel like those guys all have a good feel for when to do that.
Why do you think Daniel has had such success in Indianapolis?
He's done a good job there. They've done a good job with him. He's happy for him. He's done a good job.
What do you think they've done differently with him?
Haven't really focused on them. Been focused on trying to beat Green Bay.
Any regrets about not making the move between 2 and 3 earlier? Time for our last game.
No.
Having Jameis available.
No, I think you go and execute your plan to the best you can. And, you know, when you do feel like you have to, you know, go ahead and make something you do. But no regrets.
Yeah, what's your coaching right at this point? Is we're more than halfway through to Abdul and just, you know, the production that obviously is sometimes there and gets taken away from him and things like that. And how is he dealing with all this?
Yeah, I think, you know, the coaching is just to keep going and playing good football, you know, and I think if you look at how guys are doing their job, first of all, are they doing their job and how they're doing it, if they're playing with energy and effort and physicality, then, you know, I think that's a sign of doing a good job. And I think Abdul's done that. You know, does you know, is the production where we would all, you know, maybe think it would be or want more flashy numbers and all that? Sure, right? But, you know, I mean, he's had some great rushes and, you know, the ball was out and or he's had some sacks taken away. I mean, had one, you know, I guess technically 1.5 the other day. So the message is always just keep playing good football and doing what you can to produce, and the production will come. You can't chase numbers. You just got to do your job at a high level and, you know, live with what comes from that.
You were out here with him a little, you know, after practice on Wednesday. I know it's a regular occurrence, so I'm not trying to make it seem like that. But in those sessions, I mean, you have a young guy who, you know, high pick, high profile. What are you working on in those sessions? I mean,
mainly technique. You know, I mean, like if you look at, you know, Burns elevating his game in year 7 this year, I mean, there's always things guys can improve on and get better at. And you know, I think so if you take the Burns example and see improvement there later in his career, and just understand that there's always room to improve, that's all we're trying to do. So for him, being a rookie, just trying to work as much technique as we can, you know, while he's still getting used to playing the position. I mean, he only played it, you know, for the 1 year at Penn State. So mainly any extra work we're doing there is just technique.
Are there things that after you've now seen it, maybe you wouldn't have been working on it as much in the summer, but now that you've seen 10 games worth, that he knows things that he has to work on now that maybe he didn't think he had to work on, you know, months ago?
Yeah, I think it goes in cycles. There's always kind of some day one, everyday fundamentals you want to hit. You know, I think, you know, now just, you know, looking at where he's at, just working on hand usage and playing with extension and all that, you know, his movement traits are so elite. You know, those are pretty much good and should be good most of the time. Just working kind of some of the finer details of just using your hands. That's kind of where we're at right now.
I don't know if you're what are the coaching points for the edges when they get to the quarterback to finish it? I know Caleb is special in that regard.
He's special.
But, like, especially Kayvon, I felt like he could have, 5.
Yeah, you know, like with a guy like him, Caleb is so gifted, you know, with his traits, you know, so he's got every escape move there are. He can outrun you, he can freeze you, you know, if you're too high, he can go low. If you're too low, he can step out of it. So it's always a challenge when someone basically has every tool and physical gift in the bag to get out of sacks. But for the most part, in general, you just got to lower your target, wrap the body, and kind of work, you know, the center of the man, you know, and not give him outs as best you can, you know, and working for an upfield shoulder, giving him a one-way out, you know, and then just kind of, you know, living with the results at that point, you know. But he's special, and he you know, we fell off some sacks the other day, had a couple taken away, you know, but it is what it is. You just got to keep firing and do the best you can to get him down.
You mentioned Burns and where he's at now in his career, you know, taking even a step further this year. What has he done this year to take that next step?
I would think it's just consistency. You know, he's a gifted player. He's seen a lot of ball. It's just being urgent to apply everything. Urgency to the process, details, technique, focus, all of those things. Just in year 7, kind of everything he's learned and done through 6 years, just kind of realizing that he's at a point where he can kind of put it all together and take a step, you know, and but the biggest thing is he's been urgent and intentional with his work as he's moved forward, trying to apply all that this year, and you see the results that you've seen.
Charlie, you know, Abdul's going to be on the field, and Mike is going to be there too. There's obviously a lot of comparisons between the two of them. Right? Same school, same number. You know, I know they have a relationship. Do you sort of warn him about not trying to live up to that, or do you hope that maybe he could?
You know, Abdul is such a competitor in his own right. I think he doesn't need any extra juice to get going, and I think he'll just focus on himself and play his game. Yeah.
What's this week been like for you? Obviously, for the entire staff, it was tough.
Yeah.
The big change, the sudden change. What's your emotions right now?
Yeah, it's tough at this point. I'm all ball. Moving forward and have moved on. But in the moment, it was tough. I love Dave's as a man, and I appreciate the opportunity he gave me. And I really like fighting for him and going to work. So I was sad when that happened. And as someone who works for him and has a hand in the team's success and his success, I felt frustrated that I was a part of that and couldn't do more to prevent that from happening. So the human element of that is tough for sure. But there's another team rolling to town every 7 days in this league, so got to turn the page and get back to ball, and that's where we're at.
It's kind of a weird situation. You probably haven't spent a lot of time with Mike.
Yeah. Other than both hailing from Illinois, originally sharing that connection, but yeah, we were kind of in our roles, pretty much for the most part until this point. But great person, great coach, been around winning, so I've really enjoyed watching him this week.
What have you seen from him this week?
I've seen, consistency and, identifying a standard and how he wants things to operate and players and coaches to go about their business. It's clear messaging, it's consistent, and, it's easy to understand, so everyone can just go and do their job.
Just one more. Has he been hands-on with the defense? That's not really his forte.
Yeah, a little bit. He has, a little bit. He's been involved in just, I'd say, more big picture, just aware of kind of how guys are operating and just kind of aware of the urgency and intention, behind what we're doing. But yeah, he's been around. It's been good to see.
Shane Bowen said prior to the Chicago game that some of the tweaks the defense needed to make had to do with how you guys were playing with different fronts, maybe some techniques you guys were playing with on the front. Why do you think that was necessary, and how do you feel like it worked out?
It was more alignment, giving them different looks up front and how we line up more than it was technique-wise, as far as that part goes. We did allow him to be a little bit more aggressive up front, in that game. I think it did some good things for us, and we're going to keep working on it and see how it helps us out this week.
What do you see in Green Bay in terms of the challenges dealing with them, especially their quarterback?
They're a really good offense. Quarterback's an outstanding player. He can get the ball out of his hands fast. He's a good scrambler. He knows where to go with the ball. He does a great job of throwing the deep ball. And then in the running game, the big back is a physical runner that causes issues because you're going to need a lot of hats to get him down on the ground. And they got a good offensive line. So it's going to be a big challenge for us.
When you see as many near misses as you guys had last week, is that like a good thing because you're getting close, or is it a bad thing because you're not getting there? Like, what do you think? It was such a strange game in that regard.
I think it's a little bit of both, right? Obviously, it's a positive that we were able to get back there, right? But you like to get him on the ground, and it's like I told the guys, you got to tip your hat to that quarterback too. He made some outstanding plays. And part of it is the gift that he has to make people miss back there. And then we had 2 sacks taken away by penalties, and then we had our hands on him 7 times. He was able to get off. I didn't even count the ones where we weren't close to him and he felt pressure and he was able to get out. I'm talking about ones where we actually had our hands on him. That was 7 times. So if we just could have got him on the ground, half of those, and not had the 2 taken away, it could have been the difference in the game. So, you got to give him credit, but we got to find a way to get him on the ground.
What was your reaction to Brian Daboll's firing?
Very disappointed, sad he brought me here. I have a lot of respect for him, and disappointment in that we didn't do a good enough job to win enough games to keep him here. We all play a part in that. Myself, the players, all the coaches, we all play a part that we didn't do a good enough job to win enough games to keep him here. And so I'm disappointed. I'm sad. I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't do a good enough job to help him stay here. I have a lot of respect for him as a coach and as a person, as a man. So disappointing. It's not my first time going through it. When you've been in the league as long as I have, you go through these things.